Welcome back to the channel. I am a man who is freezing to death. This is my new penis enlargement pump, and today we are going to go over what my new car is and also answer the top 8 questions that you are going to have about it. But when I say my new car, it's actually about 20 years old at this point, and I just make questionable life choices. Quick disclaimer here, I tried filming an introduction for this car before the winter, before it was winterized and up on jack stands and everything, but I didn't realize that my microphone was broken and that the footage was mostly useless. I'm also impatient and I don't feel like waiting till the spring to reshoot this, so I guess we're gonna do what we have to do here. For those of you who are new to the channel, I bought my dream car back in 2019. It was a 2004 Dodge Viper. I paid $35,000 for it, and it is more money than I ever thought I would spend on a car, but I made it work at the time. But that was the most insane thing I had ever purchased. That was an incredible experience. I'm so glad I did that until I crashed it. So the last car video I posted, I said I wanted a replacement. I wanted something that was a track weapon, that was a little bit more affordable, that I could actually use more, but I wanted something that had a little bit better parts availability than the Viper did, and I wanted it to still be fun to drive. But let's be real here. Following up a Dodge Viper is not an easy task. What can you possibly buy after your dream car, your lifelong dream car, that can possibly fill those shoes? The list of manual transmission V10 cars is relatively short, and other than the Viper that I already owned, there's pretty much none that are within my price point. And financially, I could not justify paying top dollar for something knowing that it's going to depreciate rapidly as the car market starts to collapse. Like I said in the last video, I wanted something a little less expensive, so I bought this for $17,500. And with that, let's answer your 8 biggest questions, starting with number 1, what is it? Ultimately, what this is the car that met all of my criteria, that was within my budget, and that I got the best deal on. But it's also the antithesis to my Viper, even though it was made in the same year. That's right, I bought a 2004 Mazda Miata with a V8. But seriously though, this is a 2004 Corvette Z06. It is the C5 or 5th generation of the Corvettes. And immediately moving into question number 2, why is the hood up? Because it already has a check engine light on. Okay, question number 3, is this actually the car that I wanted? I'll be honest, not really. So this generation of Corvette, the C5 generation, this was originally released in 1997. And the Viper that I had, it was a 2004. That generation of Viper initially came out in 2003. So this is the very last year of this body style Corvette, whereas my Viper was one of the very first years of that generation. So even though they're the same model year, this kind of competed with the previous generation Viper a little bit more than it competed with mine. As someone who's into sports cars, you never really want to take a step back when you're buying your new vehicle, so I felt like this was a little bit of a step back because this was an older design. I think the next generation Corvette, the C6 Z06 specifically, that was a more direct competitor to my Gen 3 Viper. I was really hoping I could hold out and try to snipe a deal on a low price C6 Z06, but honestly, most of you owners are out of your fucking minds on the price. I would rather drag my balls through a dustpan filled with broken glass than pay $50,000 for your 15-year-old, 100,000 mile, 12 owner, 4 accident Z06 that is clapped out. Do not test me, I will do it. The other car that I did really want though was the Shelby GT350s. I think those are a little bit more justifiable from a price point compared to the C6 Corvettes, but I still think they're a little bit more than I wanted to spend on this vehicle because I want to be able to do more things rather than spend more money on the car itself. Which brings us to question number 4. If this is not exactly what I wanted, why didn't I just wait a little bit of time and get something else? Now, I've got a few reasons for doing this, and let's start with number 1, which is something I mentioned before on this channel. I had a really bad head injury a few years back, and because of that, I feel like I lost a lot of time, and it also left me with a ridiculous amount of chronic pain. Because I feel like I lost a couple years of my life due to that injury with a recovery process and still not being at 100% of who I was before, I didn't want to feel like I was sitting around waiting for things to happen and wasting the time that I do have because I know what it's like to lose those years. And the other portion of it is the driving and the enjoyment of driving and the adrenaline of it. That is the only thing that I have really found over the last couple of years that gives me a temporary escape from the pain and distracts me enough that it's no longer at the forefront of my mind. mind. It doesn't go away completely, but I'm at least focused enough on something else for a little bit that I can kind of push it to the side and forget about it momentarily. Reason number 2 that I bought it now, this was a good deal on this car. $17,500, about 85,000 miles. I've seen ones go with over 100,000 miles above $20,000. But like I said in the other video, this was not an impulse purchase. I was watching the market for months before buying this. I think it has enough power to keep me entertained as a street car, but as a track car, these things are absolute weapons. The ability of what this can do on track far exceeds what I can do on track, especially after the head injury. So this leaves a lot of margin for me to kind of learn and grow as a driver without being the level of intimidating that a 500 horsepower car is. But also, it gives me most of that enjoyment at a much lower price than the other cars I was considering. So for example, a good condition Shelby GT350 is about $50,000 more than what I paid for this. That's a lot of track days. That's a lot of events and stuff, or mods, or whatever I want to do to this car that I might not have the funds for otherwise if I was putting that towards a constant car payment. And reason number 3, this was, like I said, the direct competitor to my Dodge Viper. The Vipers have always been my dream car, and this was always the affordable alternative. You had a complete track weapon, but at a lower price point that got you probably 95% of the performance, but with double the fuel economy, half the running costs, and some actual usable cargo volume in the back, which means you can use this vehicle for things other than strictly joy rides. The other part is I like to try out new things. So when the Viper got crashed, I kind of took that as an opportunity that was the right time for that chapter to close in my life. It was time to try something else and something new. And I think with what I want to do and the timing of it, this is the right thing for that niche. Now, I've never been a Corvette guy. I've never been a Chevy guy. I've driven Camaros. They weren't really my thing. But at least on paper, this car is a very compelling argument, especially at this price point. The online communities seem to love these cars. So it's either 1, they're right, or 2, I'm going to call them out, flambroil them alive, and show no remorse for my actions. Moving on to question number 5, is it fast? And a note to editing Zach, put the clip where I don't really look impressed right here. I just like that noise mostly. This car is just over 400 horsepower and it weighs just over 3,100 pounds without a driver in it, but I'm coming directly from a Dodge Viper with 100 horsepower more at a similar curb weight, and I have a motorcycle racing background before the head injury. So my sense of speed is a little bit skewed. So I'm not going to say it's fast. It's quick, it's enjoyable, it's fun, but it's not like a downright terrifyingly fast car from the factory. Motorcycles are fast enough to scare you. The Viper, I think, is fast enough to scare you. This is not quite in that performance bracket. So let me throw in a caveat here, okay? In most normal driving circumstances or track driving circumstances, this will be faster for most people than a comparable year Viper. The reason being, this has traction control and driver assist that are actually really well designed. So even though it might not have as big of numbers for horsepower and torque, it makes the most out of those numbers with the technology that it had. It is easier to get more performance out of them because you know there's a safety net, you're less likely to crash, and you have a little bit more confidence doing that. So for most typical people like you and me who are not professional drivers, this car will probably be faster when you're going stoplight to stoplight, 0 to 60 pulls off the line, if you're doing road courses or track events like that. Because let's be real, pushing something like a Dodge Viper to the absolute limit is terrifying. There's a reason that I never tracked that car. It scared the shit out of me. Which brings me now to question number 6. How does this compare to the Dodge Viper that I had before? Here's the simple answer. It doesn't. Granted, I picked up this car in early December. I only got about 500 to 1,000 miles before putting it away for the first winter, so my opinion of this might change in the future, but the reality is the Viper was my lifelong dream car that was super special to me, and this isn't. As I put more miles on this, my opinion could totally change in the future, but right now, the Viper is and always was my total dream car. It was everything I always wanted it to be, and quite frankly, this is not my dream car. Following the Viper is not an easy act, and this thing has some big shoes to fill. So knowing that that was my all-time dream car, quite frankly, this just doesn't have that same level of mental status for me. I know that's a big part of it, even though everything about this is so objectively good on paper. Let's be real here, the Viper and the Corvette are in slightly different classes. This is a great car in every way imaginable, but it was never that like rare exotic car that the Viper always was. But at the end of the day, coming out of a Viper and going to this, let's be real, it feels like a step back because it probably is one. Which transitions us to question number 7, which is why a lot of people buy these celebrities. Do ladies like the car? And that is a stupid question. The only thing that this has attracted so far is middle to older age men wearing regular jeans, jean shorts, or New Balance shoes. I know that that is the absolute Corvette internet stereotype, but I have already experienced it on 3 occasions in the couple weeks I had this on the road. But moving on to question number 8 for all the haters out there, did this car make my penis larger? Let's just say it's now 2 inches smaller than it was when I owned the Viper. But now for the bonus round. Let's say you like terrible dad jokes or you want to see the ridiculous things I plan on doing with this car, the adventures that I'm absolutely planning to take. What should I do in that scenario? Well, that's easy. Subscribe to the channel because I post useless garbage like this and terrible dad jokes all the time when my channel isn't getting flagged. And with that, thanks for watching. I'd rather drag my balls through a dustpan filled with broken... Oh, how am I going to say this one without laughing?